Okay, so somebody did ask me this, and this is just a disclaimer. This is completely just my personal opinion, but I thought it was so funny that I'm going to share this upon request. So, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about this notion of installing um, ideal parent figures or ideal nurturing figures, ideal protector figures, which is a intervention in EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is a trauma technique. So, again, before I begin, I need to say this clearly. This video is not therapy advice. I am not functioning in any therapeutic capacity, and I'm not providing any medical or mental health treatment at all. I'm just literally sharing my personal story and my own reflection on how I thought about using the imagery and symbolism and the EMDR exercises that I just mentioned in a kind of healing journey. So please take this as personal opinion only, not as professional guidance in any way. All right. So, introduction. Why I brought Louis and Harry into EMDR. So when people hear about EMDR, they usually think of trauma. It's best known as a trauma therapy method where you bring up a disturbing memory and then process it while following bilateral stimulation like eye movements or tapping. But there's another side of EMDR that often gets less attention, and it's called future template work. This is where you rehearse, literally embody how you want to feel and behave in the future. So instead of reprocessing the past, you're programming your nervous system for what's ahead. So here's where Louis Tomlinson and Harry Styles enter my story. I've realized that for me, the way I've absorbed these two cultural figures as artists and as symbolic presences is that they carry archetypal energy that I wanted to bring into my healing. Not because I expect to date a celebrity, obviously, but because the qualities they project, or at least the qualities I perceive in them, mapped perfectly onto what I saw as ideal qualities, characteristics, and traits in what everyone has is an ideal partner template, sometimes called the imago, which there's a whole psychotherapeutic method called the imago, but I'm not discussing that here. But the concept of the imago is an internalized template that everyone has of their ideal person. And sometimes that template needs an upgrade. Not because anything's wrong, just, tune-ups. So these traits for me were emotional availability, consistent presence, groundedness, playfulness, and depth. So I began using them as symbolic anchors in my future template EMDR work. All right, what future template work actually is. So let me explain this in simple terms. In future template in EMDR, you take a specific situation you want to handle differently. Say, going on a date, having a hard conversation, or opening up emotionally. And instead of imagining it going badly, you run a mental simulation of it going well. So your therapist might guide you to picture yourself in that scenario. How do you feel in your body? What words do you say? How do you carry yourself? Then you install that future scene while doing bilateral stimulation. So your nervous system learns this is possible, this is safe, and this is me. So for me, I wanted to practice what it would feel like to be deeply bonded and attracted to somebody who's emotionally available and completely reciprocal to my feelings. Someone who is safe, steady, and present, not someone who disappears, avoids, or withholds. But because my nervous system didn't quite have that template in my younger years, because it felt foreign, I needed some symbolic guides, and that's where Harry and Louis came in. So, why Louis Tomlinson as a template or archetype? So Louis, in my mind, represents grounding. He carries this quality of loyalty, steadfastness, and realism. He's not flashy in the way fame often demands, the way fame often makes somebody and turns them into a caricature. See, Louis gives off an energy of, I'm here, I'm real, I am not pretending. So when I imagine Louis as an archetype, it's less about him as a literal person, more about what he symbolizes. Consistency, dry humor that cuts through tension, and a kind of fierce protectiveness for the people he cares about. So, in my future template exercises in an EMDR session, I would picture myself in a situation like sitting across from a partner at a cafe, and I would bring in the Louis energy. How does my body feel when I know the person across from me is steady, reliable, and not going anywhere? My shoulders drop, my jaw relaxes, my breath slows down. This was powerful because my nervous system, like many of us who've weathered the storm of millennial dating, was probably used to anticipating abandonment or inconsistency. I don't know anybody who isn't actually, but some have it more intensely than others. So the Louis as an archetype gave me a way to embody that steadiness and to actually be able to tolerate and enjoy someone who's available, which interestingly enough, sometimes somebody could be so used to somebody not being there or people ghosting them, all these things, that they're actually in a mindset of the devil you know, even though the devil you know is not good for you. So that's kind of what I'm getting at in terms of actually being able to tolerate it being good. All right. And then why Harry Styles is an archetype? Well, Harry, on the other hand, holds a different symbolic role. He embodies openness, play, and emotional expressiveness. When you think of Harry's performances, his interviews, his fashion, there's a sense of vulnerability and courage in being fully himself. So when I brought Harry into the exercise, it was about feeling into that energy of playful charm, freedom of expression, welcoming presence. So in the future template, I'd imagine walking into a room where someone like Harry is waiting for me. What does my body do when someone lights up upon seeing me? When someone's energy says, "You're wanted here." Now, I found my nervous system actually struggled with this. It felt too good, almost threatening, because openness can feel dangerous if you've been trained to expect rejection. And that's exactly why practicing with a Harry archetype was essential. It helped rewire me to tolerate joy and connection as well. So, combining the archetypes, Louis and Harry together. So, here's where it got really transformative. When I blended Louis and Harry together in the exercise, I got a symbolic image of what an emotionally available, fully consistently present ideal partner might feel like. Louis brought the stability, Harry brought the openness. Together, they created a composite archetype, a partner who is solid and grounded and playful and expressive. And in EMDR terms, this became my target installation. Instead of just picturing myself surviving a date or tolerating closeness, I began picturing myself thriving in that kind of connection. The bilateral stimulation reinforced it, left, right, while I held in mind the feeling of being with someone who carried both these archetypal energies. And over time, my nervous system started to believe it. Believe, you must believe, not just cognitively, but in my body. How many times people say, I totally get it intellectually, but emotionally, totally different wavelength. Well, once those intellectual and emotional energies harmonize, it's a game changer. So, why archetypes in therapy? Well, let's step back for a moment. Why even use celebrities or cultural figures in this way? Archetypes are ancient. Jung talked about them as patterns of human experience that repeat across cultures. The lover, the warrior, the nurturer, the trickster. When we see a public figure, our minds often cast them into these roles. Louis and Harry, for me, became more than musicians. They became carriers of archetypal energy. Louis is the grounding protector, and Harry is the open-hearted lover. Future template work does not require you to use people you know in real life. In fact, it's safer to use symbolic figures because you're not entangled with their actual availability or flaws. You're free to engage with the energy they represent. It's not about the person, it is the symbolic representation. And remember, I want to emphasize this. This is not about idealizing them as people. It's about using the symbolic shorthand that they offer to embody qualities that my nervous system needed. So, what changed in me? So, what happened after months of doing this work? I did notice a few things. So, my attraction patterns shifted. I stopped feeling drawn to emotionally unavailable people who ultimately gave me anxiety. I started noticing consistent people who were open, present, and there. And were reciprocal. 2, my body relaxed around closeness. So before, intimacy actually did feel threatening. After practicing the Louis Harry blend, it started to feel natural. 3, I redefined chemistry. I used to think chemistry was the tension of unpredictability. Now it feels like safety plus play. And it's really not about chemistry, it's about compatibility. The archetypes didn't magically summon a partner out of thin air, but they rewired the magnet inside me, part of me that determines what feels attractive. So this exercise was not about ending singleness by changing our changing what we focused on, what we noticed. It was about being comfortable with when that person shows up, that you're ready to receive it and sustain it. So, looking back, what were the lessons learned? So, there are 3 main lessons that I'd pass on from this personal experiment. 1, use what already resonates. For me, it was Lou and Harry. For you, it might be a book character, a mentor, or even an animal symbol. The point is to harness what your psyche already responds to. 2, blend qualities. So my breakthrough came when I combined 2 archetypes instead of sticking to one, because real people, real partners, are multidimensional. 3, install it in the body. EMDR is not just imagining, it's rewiring. The bilateral stimulation anchored the future template into my nervous system, and that's what made the shift durable. So I want to end by saying this. Fandom often gets dismissed as silly or unserious. But what I learned is that the energy we bring to the artists we admire can be repurposed. If you let them be archetypes, guides, and symbolic presences, they can help us heal. So Lou and Harry will never know the role they played in my EMDR work, and that is okay. The point is not them, but what they represented, the emotional blueprint for the kind of love I want in my life. And now, when I imagine myself with an ideal partner, my nervous system no longer panics. It relaxes, it opens, and it believes. That to me is the power of using archetypes in future template EMDR work. Again, none of this is therapy. None of this is therapeutic advice. It's simply my story and my opinion.